Assalamu alaikum. It's good to be with you, my friends. I hope you're doing well. A topic that we don't often address is the topic of Islamic eschatology or the Quranic eschatology. Is the idea or the images that the Quran presents of the end times, of the way the world as we know it will end, and what will come beyond it. Now, eschatology really looks at the end times, but maybe I'm referring to more than eschatology. I'm speaking about the continuous, transcendent existence of humanity, of people. And the basic premise which the Quran advances is that this life is not it is not the end of it all, of human existence. And the Quran advances more or less a model that we can apply, for example, the life cycle of a butterfly, where the butterfly is an egg, then a larva, then a pupa. It's an egg, then a larva, then a pupa, and then it becomes a butterfly finally. So the Quran often speaks about you were dead, or you were not alive, and then you were given life, and then you died, and then you shall be given life again. And so the concept of the Quran, the idea that the Quran advances, is that upon expiring in this world, upon departing this world, we then are our DNA, but not our physical, biological DNA, our personhood, our identity, our record, the actions, the deeds, the ideas, the practices, those would be preserved in a record. And that upon being revived, being brought back into our next form of existence, that identity would be reattached, would be reinserted into our new form. And so that is the premise of the Quran, is that we will acquire a new form, but we will assume our earthly identity, our earthly record of practice, and then in this new form, in this newly acquired form, which follows the earthly biological existence, we will then account for our life on earth. Now, this is not an unthinkable thought. I mean, if you think about the picture that I've just showed you, then if you ask really the larva or the pupa to explain to you, if I make the analogy of the pupa being the grave, being the state of unconsciousness again after having, so if I could move between the larva and the butterfly. If you ask the larva, a one-dimensional creature that crawls on his belly and consumes as a sole purpose of existence, then the larva would not be able to explain or fathom the life of being a butterfly. Yet the larva would be, and in a certain way, the butterfly of the future. And so if we look at the larva then as the earthly existence, and the butterfly as the existence in the life hereafter. So that is the model, that is the concept, and I'm using the analogy of the life cycle of the butterfly to illustrate how the Quran really sees the life cycle or the existence of man and woman. And so that is the model that the Quran speaks of, and it comes out very, very clearly. Many places in the Quran will refer to the future life, the life hereafter, and it refers to this life, this immediate life, as the word dunya, coming from the word dana, which means immediate or near or up close. So, what we see or what we experience is really a narrow and an immediate sort of understanding of the entire cosmos or the universe. Whereas the akhirah is often referred to as as Jannah. It is a place where there is a greater perspective, where there is more perspective, where there is greater purpose, greater understanding, more freedom, more space to move in. And that is really the image that the Qur'an offers us. And I want to share with you some thoughts on this whole outlook and the model that the Qur'an sets out. Now, one of the questions that I used to grapple with was, at the end of time, which the Qur'an predicts, there will be an end of this planet. This planet will end. Does that end of time affect the universe, or does that end of time affect the planet Earth? And upon studying the Quran, what I conclude and what I can infer is that the Quran never speaks about the end of the universe, the end of the samawati wal ard, of the entire cosmos, because that is how the Quran would refer to the cosmos, samawati wal ard, the various heavens, all the heavens and earth. And so it only speaks about the termination or the coming to an end of the earth and of the immediate solar system. In chapter, in the final 30th part of the Quran, which we refer to as Juz Amma, the Quran often speaks about the end times, and it speaks about the merging of the sun and the earth. And I've made a video about this a while back. It clearly coincides with the way that cosmologists would predict the end of the earth. It's the end of the cycle of the sun, where the sun becomes a giant star and gobbles up the earth. So that end of times is predicted not only by the Quran but also by cosmologists, that we live in a solar system that is by nature time bound. It only has a certain time to exist, at which point the earth will grow to many times its current size, swallowing up the earth. The earth itself will stop sustaining life at some point, where water will evaporate and dry out at a certain point as the sun nears the earth. And so life would have ended long before the earth ends. The Quran does refer to a fiery sort of apocalypse of humanity. Does it predict a nuclear apocalypse? I mean, one can only speculate. But definitely there will be, eventually the earth will be consumed by the sun, and both of these will come to an end. But before that time, we ourselves as humanity would have been long gone already. So the understanding I gain from the Quran is that humanity will at some point become extinct in its present form. Now there's the other question is, and let me add to that humanity based on planet Earth will become extinct. I cannot find any verse or any part of the Quran that relates that end or that apocalypse to the entirety of the known universe. So what we see when we look out into the deep, deep skies are not necessarily included in the end of time that the Quran predicts. So as far as I can understand, only the solar system, Earth, and our immediate place in our galaxy or in the greater universe will be affected by destruction and annihilation, the end of time. So the question then is, what about space travel? What about, because we have present day scientists or experts or pretenders who advance the prospect of space travel, of rescuing humanity from annihilation or from extinction by taking out people to distant planets, like, for example, to the planet Mars, and to set up colonies there to preserve humanity, or to travel to even planets beyond, many light years away. But I think for any realistic person who knows a little bit about science, we know that according to Einstein's proposition of E is equal to mc squared, that there is no traveling at the speed of light for any material form. Any material form, any material being, any material substance, when it reaches the speed of light, it then contradicts the famous equation E is equal to mc squared. And it just right now, or I think in terms of that understanding of physics and the universe, is that traveling close even to the speed of light is impossible. There's no way that anything of material substance, of a material basis, can achieve the speed of light. And that means that in our present forms, as material entities, we are unable to ever travel to any substantial distance in the universe. That's just a fact. That's just a fact. Then also, we know, another fact that we know is that we are unable to travel beyond a certain distance away from our planet, and the reason for that is what we call the Van Allen radiation belt. Now, what that is, we know that our sun, our star, radiates extremely dangerous particles, and these particles are deadly to any human being. And we, even if we should travel within a heavily fortified space traveling machine, they would still get to you. Take a look at this verse, where Almighty Allah says, وَلَقَدْ زَيَّنَّا السَّمَاءَ الدُّنْيَا بِمَصَابِيحَ وَجَعَلْنَاهَا رُجُومًا لِلشَّيَاطِينَ. Now, I only have Yusuf Ali's translation here, but this is his take on the meaning. And we have from of old adorned the lowest heaven with lamps, meaning like the sun. And we have made such lamps, these suns, the solar system, it is adorned, solar systems are adorned with a light source, or with multiple light sources, one or two suns. And these suns or lamps, masabih, we have made such lamps as missiles to drive away the evil ones. So these missiles, or these suns, or these lamps in the Qur'an, in chapter 67, verse 5, is explained as emitting a ray that dispels or disperses or prevents any traveler, any would-be traveler beyond a certain distance. And we know that the Van Allen belt, the magnetic nature of the Earth's core, is really our only protective canopy against these destructive rays. We know that because of the magnetic core of the Earth, it develops a huge magnetic field around the planet, which is approximately 1,000 kilometers at the outer rims of not in space, about 1,000 kilometers out in space. And these magnetic fields really divert or push away any penetrating, harmful, incoming rays and so on. But the negative side is that as soon as you leave that protective magnetic field around the Earth, then you expose yourself to those rays, and then that is the the fact or the reality that prevents traveling beyond a certain distance out of the Earth's atmosphere. And so the understanding, let me just sort of then recap, is that time will end, this planet will end, our biological existence will end. We will assume a different form, which is not biological, which is not physiological. Our current form prevents us from really extensive space travel. Our travel into space will unfortunately, sadly, be confined to near space travel and not to outer space travel. That is disallowed on two accounts. Number one, the Van Allen belts. Number two, the problem with the speed of light and the vast distances that we're dealing with when it comes to space. You know, the nearest star, Alpha Centauri, I believe it's 2 light years away. Even if you travel at the speed of light, it will take you 2 years to get there. So there's no way that you can actually travel without breaching the rule of the speed of light, or even breaching the Van Allen belts. And so let us look at the Qur'an and let us understand what is meant by the end of time, the akhirah, which is the hereafter, the afterlife. So my understanding of the Qur'an, of the reading, after reading many of these passages, all of these passages, is that our current existence, our biological, physiological existence will end when we die. We will reassemble, we will regenerate, and the word ba'ath in the Quran is often used. It is to regenerate, to reconstitute, to reform, to reassemble. That will take place at some point after this world is ended. And then the only qualification for becoming a citizen or an actor or a player in the new expanded universe, because in the expanded frame or abode, our physiological encumbrance will not be there. So we will be devoid of the physiological encumbrance. And so we read in this chapter in the Quran, let me just show you this verse. We read here in chapter 7, verse 40, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ كَذَّبُوا بِآيَاتِنَا وَاسْتَكْبَرُوا عَنْهَا لَا تُفْتَحُ لَهُمْ أَبْوَابَ السَّمَاءِ. For those who denied our evidence, treating it with disdain, the gates of heaven shall not be opened. The gates of heaven shall not be opened. So what this verse here, the only way this verse makes sense is by understanding that the only qualification that you will have to continue your existence in your new form, in your new post-material, post-physiological form, the only qualification you will require to assume that new form will have been a record of decency on planet Earth, a record of decent living on planet Earth. If your record of life on planet Earth speaks or testifies to a life of respect, decency, honor, justice, and equitability, then that would be your pass to enter or to enter the greater realm of the universe, as it is clearly stated from this verse. The gates of heaven shall not be opened to those إِنَّ الَّذِينَ كَذَّبُوا بِآيَاتِنَا, those who were oppressors, who were arrogant, who were iniquitous in this world, shall be denied entry into that greater, broader, wider space of existence. And that is the only way these verses make sense. And so what I'm postulating, based on reading the Quran, is that this world will end. those who lived lives of iniquity, of injustice, of unfairness, of oppression towards themselves and towards their fellow human beings, who denied the evidence that appeared in this book and in previous books corroborated by this book, the Qur'an, those people will not undertake the broader, expanded existence that will come with it. And they will be confined to this hellish merging of earth and sun, which is really a confined and unpleasant confinement. And that is where they will remain. Whereas those who heeded the call of the creator of the cosmos, of the universe, and lived lives that testified to their decency, their respect, their honor of themselves, of their fellow human being, of the earth, of this world around them, of the other creatures around them, they would qualify to enter the greater realm. They would exit the gates, and they would be able to navigate the universe, the greater universe. Now, we all know that the Quran speaks about Jannatun Tajri min tahtiha al-anhar. It's a commonly occurring phrase in the Quran, and it speaks about, the translation is, gardens, flowing gardens, Jannatun Tajri min tahtiha al-anhar, beneath which streams, flowing streams would run. And so, I recall a dream I once had, and I think there's some meaning in dreams, not always, but a dream I once had of a very great and good friend I had and who passed on. And I remember this, waking up the next morning, just recalling this dream of asking this great friend of mine who passed on, listen, tell me, you passed on. Tell me what happens when you died. What did you see? I'd like to know. And he says to me, in this dream, he says to me, Anwar, the creation of God is truly amazing. And I can't, the way I made sense of it is that I saw an image from what he shared with me. I saw an image of the vastness of space, the beauty of certain aspects of space that we are unable to see with the eye, and resembling really a garden, and with canals, with streams, passages, where there is the ability for you to actually to navigate between in this vast garden of space. And so the image I get when I think about the Quranic verses that speak about the Jannatun Tajri min tahtiha al-anhar, and speak about the gates of heaven that will open, and speak about the end of earth, the merging of the sun and the planet earth, is that when this solar system ends, our new home is the entirety of the universe. Our new home is not just the visible universe that we are able to observe now, but also all that escapes our current experience, or our current powers of observation. And then we are able to see the visible and the invisible universe, the wide expanse of nature of the universe. And through these streams, through these canals, we are able to traverse, to travel, to navigate the universe. And through our ability to visit foreign planets, we are able to visit planets that are similar to Earth, that have beaches, that have gardens, that have, through our ability to meet up with others whom we were with on this planet, we are able to engage with them. We are able to recreate amazing settings and scenery and moments in this world, right there in that space. We are able to recreate the happiness and the joy that we experienced in this world, but far beyond that, in addition to what we have here. And these are just some of the thoughts and some of the ways in which I imagine the end of time, the world hereafter. And the only qualification really is to be a person of justice, of fairness, of equity, to be a person of respect to your fellow human beings, to avoid oppression, harming yourselves, harming others, harming the world around you, and to stand up and to defend the rights of those who are suffering harm and oppression. And that really, to me, is the great reward, how I understand it. Now, this is the way I've put together the image by reading the Quran. I'm not claiming that this is the way it will be, but certainly for me it is a comforting thought that the entirety of the universe, the cosmos, the vastness of space is not futile. It comes into its own. It becomes our home, our dwelling place, when this solar system, when this immediate existence, the solar system, comes to an end. And I have covered this, but let me just, for those of you who are wondering, Earth will end in 1 billion years. Are we going to wait 1 billion years? No. Let me remind you that the Quran in fact stipulates very clearly that when you die and you are revived and you are resurrected and reconstituted in your new form, people will ask, how long was I dead? And the answer will come, a day or a night. So in other words, you are not, when life ends in this world, your perception of time and space also ends. And it is as if almost no time went by. So if you should die, heaven forbid, I wish you a long life, tomorrow, then very, very shortly after your death, you will experience what I'm explaining to you now. The resurrection, the judgment, the new abode, the expanded existence, the greater new powers of exploration, of existence that you will then experience. So for all practical purposes, the next world, the next existence starts shortly after we all die. Whether you died 1,000 years ago, whether you will die 10,000, whether anyone dies 10,000 years from now, we will all experience the next world very shortly after we have tasted the end of this life. And that is my understanding. It is a source of great encouragement, inspiration for me to live a righteous life, to fight, to sacrifice, to do what is right, to not fear the nonsense of the nonsensical threats and enemies of this world, and to live for the year after. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.